We've had some requests to do a video about behind the scenes at Chris's sentencing. And I figured I'd go ahead, even though we're in the middle of the NK series and I'm going to get part 4 out tomorrow. It's almost done. I figured we'd put this out today since Tuesday, November 19th, is the 1-year anniversary. I went into it a little bit in part 5 of our Letters from Christopher series, but for those of you who have been requesting it, I'll go into a little more detail. I had been to other murder trials and sentencing hearings before, but never anything like this. Living in the area, I had been following this case since it came on the news, had watched Chris's infamous sermons on the porch, and had been in pretty much every group pertaining to the case since day one. I'd been by the house a couple of times. I went up to Frederick to get some purple ribbons. For a while, the town of Frederick was just covered in them to honor Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. It was pretty cool to see that. I mean, they had personal residences, the government buildings, and businesses all over. The trees and poles were just covered in purple ribbons. A few weeks before the sentencing, another woman from a particular group on the case mentioned that she was going to go. So I contacted her and we made a plan to meet up at the Greeley courthouse really early to make sure that we got a spot. I was a little nervous at first that I didn't know this person, but I lucked out and she turned out to be a great person who knew a lot about the case. Not only that, she was on another website that I won't even mention it, but it's a really good website. And because of those connections, she knew a lot about kind of the behind the scenes stuff that actually helps to this day. A lot about what was going on with the families and the groups and the dramas and just the inner workings that I probably wouldn't have known about. So we met up. It was set to start at 9 a.m. and I was late like I always am. And so she had a spot when I got there. She was probably the third person back. It was crazy. And not that many people were there yet. I think we got there around 7:30. And then everyone just started about the next half an hour, just hundreds of people started coming in. The courtroom was located upstairs and the line went down the hall, down the stairs, and pretty much to the front of the building. Reporters from all over the world were waiting in line with us and interviewing people just kind of randomly while we were waiting in line. We were standing directly behind Nicole Atkinson and all of Shanann's friends. I remember that Nicole had her hair dyed purple that day in honor of Shanann. There was obviously a very somber mood throughout the crowd. It was pretty quiet, but there were a lot of whisperings going on about whether or not NK would make an appearance. So anytime someone would come up the stairs, everyone in line would turn to see who it was. That seems kind of ridiculous now looking back, but at the time, not a lot was known about her or what their situation was. Shanann's family obviously did not wait outside with everyone else. They were already seated on the left side of the courtroom. The number of reporters was incredible. Obviously, along with the local stations, CNN, Fox, Daily Mail, Inside Edition, pretty much every news outlet you can think of was there waiting. So just before 9 a.m., they began calling the reporters in one by one. And they had their clipboard with each station. So they'd be like, okay, CNN. And the CNN reporter would walk up and go in. And they did this one by one with all the stations. So it took quite a while. After the press was let in, they announced that there definitely would not be enough room for everyone and that they were going to have to open up a second courtroom for the overflow. And then they promised everyone that in the overflow courtroom, they would have audio of the proceedings. When they let us walk in, there were about 5 seats left, probably 5 to 7, if that. And everything on the left side, on Shanann's side, was taken. So we ended up sitting on the very back, on the right side behind the Watts. After we were seated and got ourselves situated, Amanda and Nick Thayer walked in behind us and sat directly behind us. And I did turn around and tell Amanda that I was really sorry for her loss, and she was very sweet and thanked me. And they looked like everyone else. They looked really, really sad that day. I just remember feeling so sad and feeling so bad for her friends and family that were there. Once everyone was seated, Judge Kopkow gave everyone a strict warning against the use of any electronic devices. I had mine both turned off, but the bailiffs were staring everyone down so hard that I felt like I was doing something wrong when I wasn't. It was just very intense in there. But they had really good control over the courtroom, and there was no way anyone was pulling out any devices, I can tell you that much. There was a lot of tension in the air, and everyone was just staring at the door waiting for Chris to be let in. When Chris was finally brought in by the bailiffs, he looked very sullen and, in my personal opinion, a little defiant. He looked as though he had lost some weight or muscle, and seeing all of the people you've only been reading about or seeing on the news is always kind of strange, and watching Chris walk in was pretty surreal. DA Rourke started out by giving the judge 21 photos of Shanann and the girls that the Rusicks wanted the judge to see. They then began the victim impact statements. I'm going to play those for you here.
Good morning, Mr. Rusick.
Good morning. What I'd like to say to the courts that Shanann, Bella, and Nico are loving, caring people. They love life. They love being around people who love them. They always had good times. This is the first time they went to the beach this year, and they loved it. But God only knows what happened that night. Life will never be the same without Shanann, Bella, and Celeste and Nico. Had all their lives to live. They were taken by a heartless one. This is the heartless one, the evil monster, who dare you take the lives of my daughters Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. And they also trusted you. The heartless monster, and then you take them out like trash. You disgust me. They were loving and caring people. You may have taken their bodies from me, but you will never take the love they had for me. They loved us more than you will ever know, because you don't know what love is, because if you did, you would not have killed them. You monster, thought you would get away with this. I don't know how. The cameras do not lie. You carry them out like trash of the house. Yes, I seen the videotape. You buried my daughter Shanann and Nico in a shallow grave, and then you put Bella and Celeste in huge containers of crude oil. You heartless monster. You have to live with this vision every day of your life, and I hope you see that every time you close your eyes at night. Oh, I forgot. You have no heart or feelings or love. Let me tell you something. I will think of them every day of my life, and I love them every day of my life. Prison is too good for you. This is hard to say, but may God have mercy on your soul. I hope you enjoy your new life. It's nothing like the one you had out here. May the courts have no mercy on you. It's hard every day. It hurts in so many ways. I have heard people say that you're not a monster. No, you are not. You're an evil monster. Thank you. Love you, Shanann, Bella, and Nico. Love you, Pop and Dad. And one other thing. And Shanann says she is super excited for justice today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Tissue box from Township.
Your Honor, Frankie Rusick Jr. He has asked me to read his statement for him, but he would like to stand with me if that's okay.
Of course. Sir, if I can just have you state your name for the record.
Frankie Rusev Jr.
Thank you for being here.
Your Honor, the past 3 months I've barely slept because I've been going through a lot of different emotions because I did not see this coming. You went from being my brother, my sister's protector, one of the most loved people in my family, to someone I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand. What gave you the right to put your hands on a woman, let alone my best friend, my beloved sister, your daughters, and your son? Why weren't they enough for you? In the blink of an eye, you took away my whole world, the people that mattered to me the most. Everything in my life I loved your children. They trusted you. They loved you. They looked up to you because you promised to keep them safe. Instead, you turned on your family. My blood is boiling as I write these last words because they are the last you will ever hear from me. I can't even think of the right words to describe the betrayal and the hate I feel. And to be honest, you aren't even worth the time and effort it takes to put my pen to this paper. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't cry for my family. They were my whole world. All I do is ask myself why. Why would you do this? You don't deserve to be called a man. What kind of person slaughters the people that love them the most? Did you really think you would get away with this? Did you really think that this was your best option, to throw away your family like they were garbage? They deserve better, and you know it. I hope you spend the rest of your life staring at the ceiling every night, being haunted by what you've done. None of us deserved this. Hearing my mother and father cry themselves to sleep in this hotel room causes me anguish that is beyond words. I can't describe how this feels, how badly my heart is breaking for my poor parents. We trusted you. You have taken away my family from this earth, but you can never take them from my heart. You took away my privilege of being an uncle to the most precious little girls I've ever known. I will never hear the words Uncle Frankie again, but you will never be called Dad again either. You'll never be able to put your hands on another woman, let alone my best friend, my beloved sister, and your son. I just can't comprehend how they weren't enough for you. Shanann, Bella, and Cece loved you more than anyone. You were their hero. How could you destroy the people who loved them the most? I pray that you never have a moment's peace or a good night's rest in the cage you'll spend every day of your life in. A cage you are privileged to live in because my family isn't evil like you. We begged the district attorney to spare your life because despite everything, we believe that no one has the right to take the life of another, even someone like you. I feel sorry for your family. I know the pain that they must feel knowing that they can't hug you, because that's how my mother, father, and I feel every time we cry for our family. Nothing hurts more than watching or hearing my family weep for their loved ones. I just wish that I could tell that you would tell the truth, but I know that that is asking for more than you are capable of. I stayed up all night writing this statement. I don't sleep because of you. My life will never be the same because of you, but at least my conscience is clear. I get to live free, but I can't say the same for you. I haven't slept in 2 days because I've been anxiously waiting for this moment, the moment I get to tell you how I feel, how this has affected my family and I. My family and I can finally grieve after today. If anything, we will come out of this stronger today than we were before, and we will continue to pray for your family. Sincerely, Frankie Rusick.
Thank you, Mr. Rusick.
Thank you
course.
for this moment.
If I can just have you just identify yourself for the record.
My name is Sandra Rusak, Shannon's mother.
Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you for this moment. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who has prayed for our beloved family, who had sent gifts, cards to us from all over the world. I know God will put the evil people where they need to be. I also want to take the time to thank the town of Frederick, Greeley, FBI, the DA's office, the CBI, for exceptional work. We thank Nicole Atkinson, Shannon's neighbor, Nathan, and his family. To me, they're our heroes. They really are. God bless. God makes no mistakes on who he puts in your life. Marriage is about love, trust, and friendship and unity. We marry for sickness and health, to death do us part. Our daughter Shannon loved you with all of her heart. Your children loved you to the moon and back. Shannon's family was her world. Shannon put a crown on your head. But unfortunately, the day that you took their life, God removed that crown. We loved you like a son. We trusted you. Your faithful wife trusted you. Your children adored you, and they also trusted you. Your daughter Bella Marie sang a song proudly. And I don't know if you got to see it, but it was, "Daddy, you're my hero." I have no idea who gave you the right to take their lives. But I know God and his mighty angels were there at that moment to bring them home to paradise. God gives us free will. So not only did you take the family of four, your family of four, you took your own life. I want the world to know that our daughter and her children were so loved by us. There will always be protected by God and his mighty angels. I didn't want death for you because that's not my right. Your life is between you and God now, and I pray that he has mercy for you. From Shannon's mother, Bella Marie, Celeste Catherine, and Nico Lee's Nana. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All of the victim impact statements from Shanann's family were really sad. Sandy's completely broke my heart, though. I just realized listening to this again that during Frankie Jr.'s statement, he says that he'll never be called uncle again, but then he also tells Chris that he'll never be called a dad again. That just really stood out to me because if you'll remember in the Letters from Christopher book, Chris tells the author that he's still a dad. I swear, even after everything he's done, I think that he tries to take little jabs at them through those types of things from prison. I also felt like that kind of when Frank Sr. said that he thought Chris separated them intentionally so they couldn't be together when he killed them. And at first Chris said no, that wasn't true. But then again, back in the book, he goes back and says that it was intentional and he did do that. It just always feels like he's doing these little sadistic FUs from prison. Just my opinion. And the Watts statements were next. And like I mentioned earlier, the Watts were sitting a few rows ahead of us. And I didn't see Jamie, of course, but Cindy and Ronnie were there. And I'm not going to be bashing anyone besides Chris in this because there's no reason to. And there's already been so much negativity and hurt surrounding both families. I'm giving this account from my firsthand experience. And all I witnessed that day was enormous, genuine loss and grief from both families.
Good morning. Are you Miss Powers?
Good morning, Your Honor.
And if I can have you folks introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Cindy Watts.
Ron Watts.
Thank you. And I have authorized you to make a statement to the court as paternal grandparents of the children. And if you choose not to make a statement, but your designee, Ms. Powers, chooses to, she can do so as well. How would you like to proceed today? Who's going to be speaking today?
Your Honor, initially, they've asked me, and they're hoping that they have the strength to speak, but if they do not, they've written out their statements and asked me to finish for them. So
That would be fine. Who would like to go first?
if I could start, Your Honor. On behalf of the Watts, Your Honor, and to the community, we thank you for the opportunity and the recognition under the Victim Bill of Rights. We come today as the grandparents and the parent of the daughter and children whose life was taken in this case. We are not here to ask for leniency. We are not in any way condoning or tolerating the crime that has occurred and the pain that has been caused. We join in our daughter-in-law and grandchildren's family in saying this should never have happened. This is not condonable. This is something that we will never get over. We appreciate the consideration that everyone has paid, most especially the families that have lost everyone. We appreciate that they begged for Christopher's life. We agree and echo what they have said, that it is not his place to take anyone's life, nor would it be our place as a community to take his life. So we thank you for the opportunity and for every consideration and effort that's been put out. The prosecution in this case has in fact respected the Victim Bill of Rights. They took the time to explain that the information that my clients had at the time that they were interviewed was not correct. They were misinformed. They were searching for answers. They were not intending to cause any pain to anyone, and they appreciate that the prosecution answered their questions and gave them the time and the respect and the consideration so that they could tell this court and everyone in this community that the interview content was not their message, that they accept that their son has done this, that they accept that he chose to plead guilty, that he sought and requested their consent and agreement for a life sentence. They appreciate that he is given the opportunity to serve that life sentence. It is his responsibility, it is his sentence, and it is not enough to make up for what has done. We understand and we join the family in that we have questions. We don't know how such a thing could possibly happen, or that a man that was responsible for raising his children and protecting his wife would take the steps that he did, and that he would disregard their bodies and the love that he had for them and they had for him and everyone else, and take the gestures and put this community through the investigation and the discovery and the responsibility of bringing justice. We do not understand that. We do not think it was appropriate. We cannot begin to think that an explanation will ever justify it. My clients indicate that they understand that a full opportunity for a confession with all of the responsibility and accountability has not occurred. And they support the family and the request that that happen, if not today, at an appropriate time, in an appropriate manner, so that everyone can have peace, to understand to the best of their ability the details that they need and to have their questions answered. And by giving this opportunity of a life sentence, we hope that he embraces that moment. That had the death penalty been pursued, there would not have been an opportunity to be accountable and to give a full confession. And had the death penalty been sought, counsel would have fought for his life, the prosecutors would have been engaged in a multiple-year battle, the families would have been torn apart, this community would have had to subsidize it and endure it, and we have so much respect and gratefulness that that did not happen. We would strongly encourage Christopher Watts to give that full confession in the tone and in the timing that he thinks is appropriate with the guidance of his counsel. We feel that it would be appropriate and helpful to ease the pain and the suffering. But we also say we don't think that there's anything that he can say that will ever account for his behavior. There's nothing that can be done to cure the harm he has caused. And he has the responsibility to serve his sentence with dignity and with regard for everyone, and to spend every breath that he has left in an atonement for what he has done. Do you want to read it? Yes.
So if I can just have you state your name for the record.
Cindy Watts.
Thank you.
My name is Cindy Watts. I am the grandmother of two beautiful granddaughters, Bella Marie, Celeste Catherine Watts. I am also the mother of Christopher Watts, who I will be directing most of my statement to. First, I'd like to begin by recognizing the absolute horror of this crime and acknowledging the devastating loss that both the Rusek family as well as our family have faced. Our families have been irreparably broken by the needless deaths of Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico. This is something we will never get over. We will always mourn the loss of our family, and in that, we are united in our grief. I am still struggling to understand how and why this tragedy occurred. I may never be able to understand and accept it, but I pray for peace and healing for all of us. Now to my son, Christopher. I have known you since the day you were born into this world. I have watched you grow from a quiet and sweet, curious child who Bella reminded me so much of, to a young man who worked hard in sports and later mechanics to achieve your goals. You are a good friend, brother, father, and son. We have loved you from the beginning, and we still love you now. This might be hard for some to understand, how I can sit here under these circumstances and tell you, although we are heartbroken, although we can't imagine what could have led us to this day, but we love you.
Maybe you can't believe it either. As the Lord said in Jeremiah 3:31, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have continued my faithfulness to you. And you, as your mother, Chris, I have always loved you, and I still do. I hate what has happened. Your father and sister and I are struggling to understand why. But we will remain faithful as your family, just as God remains faithful because of his unconditional love for us all. We love you, and we forgive you, son.
Thank you.
Judge, if I could read Mr. Watts' statement.
Yes.
My name is Ronnie Watts, and I am the grandfather of Bella, Celeste, Nico Watts, and I am the father of Shannon. I am the father of Christopher Watts as well. And one of the most important things I've done in my life is to raise my children and to watch as they started their own families. I spent many years coaching Little League and talking to my son, taking him to the races, and sharing my love and knowledge of cars with him. He was just as involved with his girls. I believe he loves his girls. I know he does. This tragedy has impacted my family in so many ways. Beyond losing my precious grandchildren, our beloved daughter-in-law, we are forced to question everything. We still don't have all the answers, and I hope one day, Christopher, you can help us. Chris, I want to talk to you as a father and son. You are here today accepting responsibility, but I want to tell you this now. I love you. Nothing will ever change that. And I want you to find peace, and today is your first step. The Bible says if we confess our sins, God is faithful and just and will forgive us. Chris, I forgive you, and your sister forgives you, and we will never abandon you, and we love you. Dad. Judge, thank you for the opportunity to address the court.
Thank you.
After the victim impact statements, DA Rourke made a statement on behalf of the prosecution. He gave the state's account of what Chris did to his family that night. At this point in time, the last information the public had was Chris's false statements accusing Shanann of killing the girls. DA Rourke starts out by saying that he doesn't think Chris will ever tell the truth about what happened that night. He stated that Chris did not snap or go into a rage, but he killed his family in a cold and calculated manner. He states Shanann got home, as we know, at 1:48 a.m. as seen on the doorbell cam, and that Chris told them about their quote-unquote emotional conversation that occurred shortly thereafter. He stated that sometime after that, Chris strangled her with his own hands in a deliberate, controlled manner. For the first time, it was confirmed to the public that Chris smothered Bella and Cece. It was sickening to hear DA Rourke describe Bella's injuries. When Rourke announced for the first time that Bella fought back, people in the courtroom were gasping and crying. When he went on to describe her injuries and how she bit her tongue multiple times while fighting him off, I felt sick to my stomach. Rourke then told the judge how Chris calmly loaded up his truck with their bodies and how he buried Shanann and Nico in a shallow grave and how he shoved Bella and Celeste through the 8-inch thief hatches of the tanks. When the prosecution was finished, Judge Kopkow asked Chris if he wanted to say anything, and Chris said, "No, sir," in a meek voice. He said through his attorneys, however, that he was, quote-unquote, sincerely sorry. Judge Kopkow said that he could objectively state that in the 17 years he's been a judge, presiding over thousands of cases, this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime he has handled. Chris sat stoic, showing little emotion, while he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, plus 2 more concurrent life sentences for 2 other murder charges, plus 48 years for the unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 12-year sentences for 3 separate counts of tampering with a deceased human body. After the sentencing was over, there was about an hour break until the press conference. We arrived there early, so we were sitting there waiting with Inside Edition and some of the other reporters, and Nicole Atkinson came and attended with the Rusick family. The main two topics everyone was buzzing about were one, NK of course, and two, the autopsy reports. Discovery had not been released yet, and everyone was dying to know what NK's role had been and all of the details of their relationship. All we had been exposed to with her up to that point was the Denver Post article where they had interviewed her prior to the sentencing. But again, it was mainly a fluff piece, and everything was about to turn upside down as far as she was concerned when Discovery was released the following week. The autopsy reports were also a hot topic because no one had been privy to much information, besides the fact that he had agreed to a plea deal. Rourke discussed the autopsy reports that were about to be released and tried to stop any rumors in advance about their findings. He then held about a 25-minute question and answer session with reporters, and of course I had to include this one.
That's the best I can tell you from a time.
The girlfriend you referenced in court, can you give us a better idea of her role in the investigation, how forthcoming she was, and how she helped?
She originally came forward and spoke to investigators on her own volition. Prior to the time, unfortunately, that she came in and spoke with investigators, she had deleted all of the information off of her phone that had any connection between her and Chris Watts. That hampered the investigation. That hampered our ability to get that electronic digital connection between the two. She was interviewed on multiple occasions. I believe that for the most part she was forthcoming in the course of those investigations. We don't have any reason to believe that she had any prior knowledge or involvement in the death of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I think that's the best way I can answer that.
What you can't see from an outsider perspective is anytime a reporter asked about her, they would kind of stop and look at each other with these looks, and it was pretty clear that they didn't think much of her. That's just my opinion, of course. I will link the full press conference in the description if you have any interest in watching that. It's hard to get across in a video what an actual experience is like, but like I said before, when I left there, I felt completely drained and physically ill. So if I felt like that, I cannot imagine what their friends and family must have been going through. So here we are exactly 1 year later from Chris's sentencing, and this case is still just as talked about, and Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico are still deeply mourned by people across the globe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sissy. And that is Sissy. Okay. Oh, I'll stay with her. Don't take her away. I'm not taking her away. Don't kiss me. Don't be scared. Please don't get to be scared. Don't be Be nice to Cece. Okay? But was confronted by another who fought the heart. A demon of earth and fire. Now he was struck from the sky, never to be seen again. And his magical fish hook and the path of the
Rubbing her back.